This RTX 4090, it's mighty. Comes with a crazy 450 TDP. Wanna get it, gonna cost you 1599. But don't you forget to get a new power supply. This card is so thick, it's not for the weak. If you got a puny case, hey, it ain't gonna fit. Best hit the gym, man, got legs like a skylark. How much do you bench, bro? Let me see them benchmarks. Got time spiler, Puget bench lah. Oh, and don't forget to test DLSS 3. Later, the whole village PM me. Play. Yes, the RTX 4090 is here. And yes, it's gonna cost at least $1,599 US or 8,400 ringgit according to Nvidia's official site. Okay, what? I was expecting more like $2,000 or 10,000 ringgit. Well, at least no more scalpers to further jack up the price now that GPU mining is dead. Fingers crossed. Also, until ATX 3.0 power supplies become more common, we're going to be stuck with this PCIe power connector splitter that apparently only comes with the first batch of the RTX 4090s from Zotac according to Zotac. So let's take a look at the specs first. As you guys already know, with the RTX 40 series, Nvidia is moving on to a new TSMC 4nm process, and because of this, they are able to cram in 56% more CUDA and Tensor cores, as well as 14% more ray tracing cores. Also, we're getting a 48% faster clock speed with 2520 or 2.52 GHz at boost, which is very significant, with a TGP to match at 450 watts. Now, Nvidia recommends at least an 850 watt power supply, but I would go for at least 1000 watts if you're using any of the newer i9 or Ryzen 9 CPUs. Other than that, we're getting a slightly faster GDDR6X VRAM, still 24 GB and a slightly higher bandwidth. What is also interesting is that the RTX 4090 is being launched at almost the same SRP as the 3090, just $99 US more, which got quite a lot of people complaining. Actually, not to add more salt to the wound, but you might also need to upgrade that PSU of yours given the new power draw. So that's gonna cost you a pretty penny as well, because ATX 3.0 1000 watt PSUs are not cheap. Some of you might have noticed that what we have here today is not the Founders Edition GPU, but the Zotac RTX 4090 Amp Extreme Airo. It's got curves, unlike every other RTX 4090s out there. Comes with 3 fans under a plastic shroud, on top of a giant heatsink with 9 heat pipes for a whopping 3.5 slot thickness. Actually, that's the same as the Founders Edition. The Amp Extreme Airo also comes with a metal backplate and a decent amount of RGB. Now, this Zotac RTX 4090 Amp Extreme Airo is gonna set you back 8,799 ringgit, or you can save a few bucks and get the Trinity OC version for 8,399 ringgit. Links in the description. So the looks on this card can be polarizing. Some of you seem to think that it's very awesome looking, very different, while some of you think that it's the bad kind of different, very quirky. Whatever floats your boat is your money, ma. Because beauty is in the eye of the bangsawan. Not bangsawan, we got 8.8k to #cheap buy. Now let's take a look at our test setup. This time we have moved on to a brand new Cooler Master Frame 700 from our Taobao test bench with an AMD AM5 platform. We have the Ryzen 7 7700X CPU cooled by a Master Liquid ML360 Illusion on an ASRock X670E Taichi motherboard with a 32GB kit of Corsair Vengeance DDR5 memory rated at 6000 MHz, all powered by a brand new FSP Hydro G Pro ATX 3 and PCIe 5 1000 watt power supply. And because you guys seem to like to see me diam build PC, we've also done an ASMR test bench build, the whole video with this setup, so feel free to check it out on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page as well. Link also in the description. Moving on to the benchmarks, we're gonna kick things off with gaming benchmarks starting with 3D Mark, and in Firestrike, we saw an 82% improvement with the RTX 4090 over the 3090 in GPU scores in DX11, which went up to a 99% in DX12 with Time Spy. Oddly enough, Time Spy Extreme showed an even more dramatic performance uplift with the RTX 4090 more than doubling the 3090's GPU scores. It seems like we can expect a bigger advantage with these new gen cards with resolutions higher than 1080p. The pattern re-emerged with most of the titles we tested with. In Shadow of Tomb Raider, we saw a 20%, 60%, and then 100% improvement with the RTX 4090 in 1080p, 1440p, and 2160p or 4K respectively. I'm gonna let you pause and view the other gaming benchmarks as you like. Just know that in general, upgrading to the RTX 4090 from the 3090 from a pure rasterization perspective will benefit you more if you go for at least 1440p or 4K. Now before we move on, for those who play competitive titles like Valorant, you can expect frame rates in the 700s, even in 4K. 4K 360Hz, anyone? Jokes aside, I wouldn't upgrade to an RTX 40 series card if you play competitive titles only. Just get a bargain on an RTX 3080, 3070 since their prices are dropping like crazy. Now, something that Nvidia has been talking about a lot more is of course ray tracing. Even though I dare wager that more than half the gaming community probably haven't given two shits about RTX because of the performance hit. Well, with the new shader execution reordering tech in the RTX 40 series GPUs, as well as that AI beefed up DLSS 3.0, things are much different. Looking at the benchmark of Tomb Raider or Shadow of the Benchmark, you can expect a 54% improvement in 1080p, 87% in 1440p, and 108% in 4K, more than doubling without turning on DLSS. The gap is slightly smaller with DLSS on, but hey, we haven't seen 200 plus FPS with everything maxed out before, so it's definitely a treat. Even Cyberpunk 2077, which has gotten a second win with the new Netflix series, can be enjoyed at more than 100 FPS in 4K RTX Ultra DLSS performance. Just look at the numbers. Except for 1080p, we're looking at an 80 to 158% jump in performance across the board, so I would say that 1080p gaming is pretty much dead with the 40 series. If you're using 30 series and 20 series, then you can still game in 1080p. RTX On for live gamers like me can finally rejoice. Now, I'm not gonna forget about RTX Off DLSS On gamers who, want to min-max everything. You guys who just want that performance boost from DLSS are probably just wondering what improvement can we expect with DLSS 3.0. So here are 4 games that we tested with DLSS On without RTX. And apparently, according to Nvidia, only Dying Light 2 is supported by DLSS 3.0 along with 30 plus other games, so do take note of that. You can expect huge performance jumps with DLSS as usual in their recommended settings without turning on RTX, but I would argue that if you don't game with ray tracing, the RTX 30 series with DLSS 2.0 work just about as well. Now let's take a look at productivity benchmarks. We're gonna start with content creation workloads firstly. Taking a look at Puget Bench, I can say that if you only do After Effects and Photoshop work, improvements are pretty minimal. Then again, maybe Puget Bench needs to update their tests to include much heavier files to stress test the GPUs. Premiere Pro and Resolve saw a 12 to 20% improvement, which is still not that huge of a gap. If you already have an RTX 3090 and content creation is your main thing, you can probably afford to skip this one. For people who are dealing with 3D workloads, however, things are way different. You can expect double the performance in Blender and V-Ray since the RTX 4090 has quite a few more CUDA and RT cores. For 3D animators and designers, RTX 4090 should be a no-brainer. Finally, let's take a look at power and thermals. In terms of temps, it seems like the RTX 4090 runs quite a bit cooler, even with a similar cooling solution, 3 fans and all that. It idled at only 36 degrees, but didn't go much hotter than 67 degrees during gaming, or a slightly higher 71 degrees during Firmark and ADA 64 stress tests. The Airo was also quite a bit quieter than the older Trinity model, which was already decently quiet. So for those who are wondering about this particular Zotac card, click the links in the description because it gets my approval as far as thermals and acoustics are concerned. Finally, let's take a look at power consumption. If you are using a Ryzen 7 or i7 CPU with this card, you should probably be fine with an 850 watt power supply with at least an 80 plus gold rating. But if you're thinking about that Ryzen 9 or i9 13th gen, I would go for at least 1000 watts to be safe. Okay, long story short, should you get the RTX 4090? Let me break it down for you. For me, it's definitely a yes if you have the cash to spend, and for these 3 main reasons. Number 1, if you want to game in 4K 144Hz with RTX On, it is now a reality. Even for some of the most demanding AAA titles out there, thanks to that beefed up hardware, something called shader execution, something's reordering, and DLSS 3.0. Number 2, we have RTX Remix. Older titles like Morrowind and the older Witcher stuff can be remastered for ray tracing using Nvidia's RTX Remix and AI enhanced textures, which is going to help bring all those nostalgic titles from the boomer era into our Gen Z 2022. Number 3, for content creators who are looking at AV1 encoding, which is 40% more efficient than H.264, and this is especially useful for those who are streamers. Then you can stream at higher resolutions without running higher bitrate in case your internet's slow. Unless you have time lah, like their 2 gigabits per second internet package that you can check out in our most recent video before this one. For competitive gamers, just look away lah. The RTX 30 series is already crazy fast enough what? And you guys also don't game with RTX on your RTX off one lah. So this is our first look and review on the RTX 4090. Again, our one is the Zotac Amp Extreme Airo, not the Founders Edition. So if you have a Founders Edition, the numbers might be slightly off, but not too far lah. So far, I'm pretty impressed with all the new tech that comes with the RTX 40 series, as well as the beefed up hardware. Even with the new power requirement, which I think is a little absurd lah, but you know what, if you got money to buy the 4090, then you know, buying a 1000 or 1200 watt power supply or 1600 watt power supply won't be a problem for you anyways. But what I'm most interested to see is how all these new tech and hardware trickle down to a more attainable or more Marhen GPU like the RTX 4070 or 4060, because most of you guys are probably looking at those anyways, and abang need to payung. And that's everything I have to say about the RTX 4090. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. If you don't have, then just subscribe and hit the notification bell lah, because you're a nice person. I know you are, your mother got say so, okay? And then, if you want to see more shenanigans from the Mob House crew, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Again, my name is Bangsawan Shane from Mob House, and I will see you in the next one.